Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of your favorite mental health podcast, Yumi Empathy. It's me, Known Wells. I'm your host, creator, founder of the Feely Human Collective. This is episode 190 on life as a death doula with Jen Wijnker. Jen is a dear friend. I was so grateful to chat with her about the big feelings that made people uncomfortable growing up, shifting expectations of ourselves, the origins of our people-pleasing, normalizing the human capacity for change within each other, and Jen's beautiful role as a death doula. We talk about death. We talk about death anxiety. We talk about the grieving process. We talk about mushroom burials and green burials and how our culture, at least here in the States, avoids death, aka anti-aging industry, aversion to wrinkles, you name it. I feel it. I've internalized it. I'm trying to dismantle it within myself. You get it. Just such a fun episode. Really enjoyed talking about death and all things dying. And really, what I mean by that is all things living. That's what life is, right? We are connected. And one of the most certain ways we are connected is in death. We all die. How can we create meaningful, compassionate space and conversation around this thing we all have in common? Grateful to have this conversation. Grateful for the work Jen is doing as a death doula. Hope you enjoy the episode. But before we get to that, I just wanted to remind you that you can support me and the work I do if you go to feelyhuman.co. I have an ongoing free workshop called Feely Human 101. There's a shop. You can buy merch, like really adorable t-shirts and pins and mugs even. And I would love the support, honestly. Not many people buy stuff in the shop, and I'm wondering if I made a big mistake. Not really. I don't. But, I need to probably be better at marketing it, yada, yada, yada. It's not core to who I am. But here I am, a corporate shell for Feely Human America. Anyways, I love you. I hope you can support me and the work I do over at feelyhuman.co. We're looking for new writers for the journal. I'm always open to fun collaborations, new workshop ideas, art collaborations, etc. So check that out, feelyhuman.co. Make sure to follow this podcast on Instagram at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human at Feely Human. And please leave a rating and review of this podcast in Apple Podcasts. I'm a broken record that is feely and believes in more reviews. I would love to get to 200 reviews. Do you think we can get to 200 reviews before we get to 200 episodes? Is that a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge. I think we can do it together. I believe in you. I believe in us. Let's do it. We're 10 episodes away from 200. We're about 50 reviews or ratings away from 200, but I believe we can do it. So tell a friend about this show. If you love this show, please tell a friend. Tell them to subscribe, rate, and review. That would be wonderful. And that's it. Thank you for being a part of the Feely Human Collective. Thank you for being a Feely Human. Thank you for listening. I love you. Enjoy this episode. Episode 190 on life as a death doula with my pal, Jen.
You and me.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights, and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I've been dying to get this feely human on the podcast, the oat gall scavenging, mortality specialist, and death doula, and truly the sweetest feely human I know, Jen Wijnker. Hello, Jen.
Hi, Noam. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you.
It's exciting to be here.
So excited to have you.
Yeah, I've been listening to the podcast for a couple of years now, and it feels kind of a little surreal to be on it now.
I'm so grateful to have you here, and I'm curious, what was the first episode you listened to? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I think it was number 45. It was the episode with Becky Leonard.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
Yeah, that's how I discovered You, Me, Empathy, through our mutual friend Becky.
Yes. 40. That was episode 45?
I think so.
Wow. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm already in the 180s.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, so happy to have you. The listeners should know that we are real life friends, not just internet friends, which is fun and exciting. And we don't live too far from each other, and we get to see each other every so often. Probably not as often as I'd like.
Very true.
But let's do an emotional check-in. Jen, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling excited. A little bit nervous to be here, but overall, I love chatting with you. We always have amazing chats, and so I'm really excited. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life, but it feels good to be here.
Mm-hmm. What's going on in your life?
Oh, just busyness with kids at home. I've got 3 adorable ones, and they keep me on my toes, especially the last year of the pandemic. And just trying to juggle that with career and learning and everything else in life, cooking, shopping, blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot to juggle, but I feel incredibly privileged and grateful for all of my things. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Mm-hmm. I know you believe that, and I also know that there's this weird, I guess, like expectation that moms should feel that way as well, right? Like there's the truth of like, yes, you feel that way, and also like we should be so grateful all the time for the blessing of being a mom, right? And I wonder if you've ever felt that sort of, I don't know. I'm a white male cisgendered person, and I feel that aversion to that sort of expectation.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I feel that all the time. It's definitely something I speak with my therapist about regularly. But I definitely have my moments where I need space and I need time for myself. I definitely haven't had that as much as I would like to this last 16 months or so. But I vacillate between feeling partially, overwhelmed and like this is too much, and then, I can work through it, and then things get a little bit easier, or I get more adapted, or we figure out something new to make things easier. And sometimes that's in my attitude, shifting my expectations or my attitude. And I think that's been helpful for me, has been shifting my expectations of myself. So constantly looking at the expectations, and is this really what I need to be doing, what society says or what culture says that moms have to do it all, Or do I get to say, no, I'm not going to do all the stuff. My kids finished their homeschool already, and I spent, I think, 6 hours playing Roblox with my son yesterday, and he loved it, and it was great. It was a really good bonding time for us. And my partner kept walking by us and looking over it, and it was just like, "What are you doing?" kind of look. And I was just like, "Yeah, that's fine, but we're paying build a boat for treasure right now, and I'm having a great time." So
there you go.
It was fun.
Yeah, ultimately, I like what you said. Ultimately, it comes down to what you decide what is right, right?
Yeah.
And I think like it's weird, like these spaces of self-care and wellness and healing and seeking and stuff, like there's a part of me that does feel like, and maybe this is like the shame or whatever, but like feels like there's like a selfishness to that. But I think that's something that I'm always fighting, which is like, no, like I'm fighting the sort of like the thinking that like it's maybe selfish to take care of myself and choose what's right for me. And also there's a piece of it that's like, well, there is kind of like sometimes we dip too far into it as well. Like we dip too far into the me, and like we have to be cognizant of that. It's messy is what I'm saying. And it's to your point earlier, it's something that like we do always have to check in on, because I don't think it's ever a state that's fixed. It's always sort of vacillating, to use your word.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's just like, the Dennis Leary's joke about happiness, that it's not a state or a place that you arrive at. I'm not going to do his comedy justice, but it's, as he said, it's a effing chocolate chip cookie. It's an effing orgasm. It's you have those little moments. And so I think carving out those moments of, as the buzzword is today, self-care, just moments for ourselves is so important for maintaining happiness, because you're never going to get to a point where, oh, wow, I've reached happiness. I'm at my destination. I'm never leaving. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Never
no
like
destination.
It's just a constant journey, trying to continue seeking little pieces of it. So I think I love all of the times where you get to take a few moments and just do something for yourself. And I think it's absolutely necessary. I think burnout happens and overwhelm happens when you're not doing that enough.
Has that realization been hard for you to get to?
Well, I just referenced a stand-up piece from I think 20 plus years ago. So I've been aware of that concept for quite some time. I always thought that was hilarious and so true, but it's absolutely been something that in my journey, I'm constantly working on, because I feel like society tries to sell this idea that, if you work hard and you buy the right stuff and, look the right way, you'll be happy. And that's it. And those are all just lies. Essentially, they're just ways to sell things mostly. And it's really getting to know yourself and what you need, and meeting your needs is the best way to happiness, I think.
I mean, so I know you personally, and I know you as someone who's very generous with your care and your heart of people in your life. And that's a gift. That's a wonderful superpower you have. And I also am aware of, in reflecting in my own experiences with that kind of thing, it can be, when it's not evolved and well trained and sort of well considered and stuff like that, it can become a burden. It could become an imbalance, that kind of thing. How has that piece of your journey been?
I battle codependency every day. My generosity, if I'm being perfectly honest, probably stems from a very deep, rich vein of codependency that ripples through the mountain of my existence. And I have to essentially avoid it. I have to essentially examine it. And I've gotten better at it as an adult. And after therapy, my therapist helps immensely. I it's a continuous journey, and I'm better at battling it in some ways than others. Part of my codependency I'm learning is putting up boundaries, something I've never been good at, because generally codependency means you don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's taken me a long time to learn that boundaries are a form of self-care, and that boundaries are a way to sort of preserve your peace, as it were, and not give so much of yourself that you have nothing left. So there's definitely a fine line. And I know that sometimes I overstep. And I think I have, after years of practicing, I have more awareness of saying, oh, okay, I didn't like how that felt. I did too much, or I went over the line, and sort of mental note, let's scale it back next time. Or how could I draw a better boundary for next time so I don't feel that way again? And I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I think you learn after so many years which people are your people. You definitely, I definitely gravitate towards some people rather than others. And you can tell the people who appreciate your kindness and generosity and don't take advantage of it. And I gravitate towards not the people who will give back to me, but because that's not how it works, but just the people who will hold my heart and see it and appreciate it and not try to, squeeze it dry. So sorry, mixed metaphors all over the place.
It's okay. This is the #1 mixed metaphors podcast. Yeah, I relate to a lot of that. I wonder if you'd be open to sharing maybe some of those moments where, the boundaries or the balance wasn't working in your favor. And because I like, growing up in an environment where I certainly was like in a codependent sort of situation and it was very imbalanced. I've had to break free of a lot of that stuff. And I just encountered a thing yesterday, in fact, where it's something I've been aware of, but I still do. And and Jessica and I had a conversation about it, which is we spend Saturdays like working in the garden and doing house stuff. And we took a break to go run an errand and then go over to Patch Coffee to get some coffee. And we somehow got on the conversation with the Patch employee, the guy like ringing us up about, Jessica said, Known's a dirtball. And I was like, yes, I'm a dirtball. And then he's like, oh, you used to eat spiders as a baby. And I was like, yes, that's true. And then, of course, I had to say, because my parents fucking hated me. Or I think I said because my parents didn't give a shit about me. I think that those are the words I used. And, I think that's me being hyperbolic. Of course, maybe a small reflection of reality, but also like what it comes down to is me putting up armor. It's me like, oh, like I'm getting attention here and like that's scary and I need to make people uncomfortable and like get them away from me. I think that's like part of my sort of codependent reactionary sort of like mechanism that I've like picked up and have to be very aware of. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how like maybe you've had some moments where you've like had to like, oh, that was a big learning opportunity or, whatever.
Yeah, that's, well, the one thing that's coming to mind right now is a friend that used to be a friend. And I've always been a very caring, not just toot my own horn, but very caring, generous, codependent person who likes to take care of other people. And she was a little younger than me and had a lot of issues with her narcissistic parents. And we were friends for a long time. And it turned out she had some odd tendencies, some red flags that I can see now, but I kind of brushed it off as her upbringing. And it's hard to, recover from her, what she went through. But I almost like took her under my wing. Like I did lots of things for her financially, emotionally. And maybe at certain points I kind of knew she was maybe taking advantage a little bit, but then it was like, you know what, I can afford it right now. It's not a big deal. And I tried to be there for her as much as possible. But then I can't go into too much detail, but she started making some decisions that were not good at all. And it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, well, do you really think that was the best choice? It was like destruction of property because she was angry at someone. And she was like, well, yes, of course it was. They deserved it. And I was kind of like, okay, but to me, that crossed a big line for me, what she had done. And another friend, a mutual friend that we had met through her, was sort of in my camp. We had a conversation. We were like, she really needs help right now. She's really struggling. And she essentially found out we were chatting about her. We were both feeling like, we think not like intervention, but it was just like, we were both kind of like, I just don't think that's a really smart idea. Like maybe, we both weren't okay with how she was reacting and what she was doing with destroying other people's property. And so she got really upset. She got in a big fight with the other friend and then told me, you need to never talk to her again. Otherwise we're done. And she pretty much gave me that ultimatum. And in my head, my first codependency was like, oh, I have to take care of her. I have to
make this right.
Yeah. I have to help her. I have to do something I don't know. I have to be on her side so I can help her through this. And so I had a phone call with the mutual friend and I was like, look, I'm so sorry. This is what she wants. And the mutual friend knew all the stuff. And I was just upfront with, she says that I'm worried about her. I'm worried she's going to hurt herself if she doesn't have anybody. And we can't talk anymore. And she was very understanding, of course. The mutual friend is a social worker. So she was like, yep, no problem. I get it. I'm sad to miss out on you as a friend, but I get it. So I hung up from that phone call and I had this terrible feeling in my heart. And I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I so loyal to this person who is making terrible choices and not to this person who is kind and thoughtful and, generous and wonderful? And so I called my social worker friend back and I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I take it all back. I'm not going to stop being your friend. Like I needed to go through that process to realize what a huge mistake it was. I'm like, why would I not want her in my life anymore? She's fantastic and she's not unstable and it's not my job to fix people. And so it was never an outright, did you unfriend her or did you stop talking to her? But it became apparent to that other person. And she stopped talking to me. She has not spoken to me. And that was 12 years ago, I think. And I think at one point, about 5 years after, she'd always, that friend had always really liked my oldest daughter. And we went to Sephora one time and she let her put makeup all over her face. It was hilarious. But she was always asking about my oldest daughter. And so I thought, you know what? It's been like 5 years. Maybe she's cooled down. I'll send her a Christmas card. And then she, like a couple weeks after Christmas, I got an envelope in the mail. And on the outside of the envelope, it said no. And inside the envelope was my Christmas card all ripped up.
There you go.
And that to me was like, yeah, I went ahead and made that right choice. That was the, I guess she's still mad. And that's okay. That's valid. She's allowed to be angry. And it's not my job to fix it or help or fix her. And she's a very smart, wonderful person. But it wasn't good to have her in my life anymore. So sorry, that was a very long-winded story, but yes.
No, I appreciate it. It's a really good example. It's a really good example of how tricky it is sometimes and enmeshed a lot of those relationships can be, because there is value and beauty in wanting to help, right? But we should always be assessing why we're doing it. We should also always be aware of the forces at play, the sort of the systems at play, the things that the sort of baggage that I've taken with me from childhood that can play a role, right? And then the impact and you know, when it comes to like boundaries and when it comes to any relationship, it has to be a two-way street, right? Like
Absolutely.
it's not our job alone to create a relationship or to save a relationship or to foster a relationship. It's both parties. And if one party is clearly like doing stuff that like seems detrimental to that aim, then yeah, like I think it's important to call it out. It's important to set the boundaries that are needed. Yeah. So do you know, I talk a lot about like how sort of my childhood experiences have informed, you know, certain aspects of myself. I just mentioned, you know, before the sort of like projecting, armoring, sort of protection stuff that I do when I feel like people are paying attention to me. Do you feel like some of this tendency toward codependency relates to your experiences as a kiddo?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's totally tied into that. And I think my parents, they were. I feel like I hit the jackpot with parents. My parents are both delightful, wonderful people, but not without their flaws. My mom is the first she told me what the word codependency means. It's something that she's battled her whole life. And she's an amazing person because she is constantly growing and learning. She's not stuck in her ways. So I'm so grateful for that. But, you know, they did the best they could at the time. And I think the culture growing up in the 80s was more of a, like, if you skin your knee, it's like, just get up, you're fine. Like, brush it off, like, you're okay. So always, and I didn't realize this till for the last couple of years, that it was very invalidating for my feelings because, well, my knee hurts, it's bleeding, and it's ouchy. I don't feel good. And then telling me it's fine. You think, oh, you're just trying to toughen up the kid or whatever. But I had that stuff a lot. Essentially, I learned that my feelings made other people uncomfortable. So I definitely avoid big shows of making other people uncomfortable. And I'm an absolute people pleaser. That's definitely something that's been a big part of my life, is being a people pleaser. And if I'm nice and if I'm friendly, then people will like me. And that's something that I'm just in the last decade or so learning. I don't really care if they like me, which is amazing. And it feels so freeing. And it's not everybody. People who are very important to me, I care deeply. If I've gotten in arguments with some of my best friends that I've known for 25 years, and we had to work through it. We had to lay it all down. I wasn't just like, F off. I'm done with you now. I'm setting a boundary. I was devastated because I don't want to upset the people that mean a lot to me, because I know that they're valuable, wonderful people. So we worked through our miscommunications. So those friendships are absolutely worth saving and working through and being patient and communicating. But I definitely there's certain people in my life now that I'm like, you know, if I never heard from them again, I wouldn't be sad. I'm not going to go out of my way to, you know, be rude to them. I will be kind. I think you can do both. I think you can be kind to someone, but still not really let them be a huge part of your life. And I've definitely learned that as an adult, that I have certain people who I won't name, but I definitely do that now.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, it's what I like to do, or what I like to call it, is compassionate but clear in my boundaries and clear in what I want. I wanted to, for the listeners, just like paint the sort of the connection from like you as a child skinning your knee, and then getting the response of like, you know, oh, suck it up, or whatever words were said, but like you felt unseen. You felt like your big feelings and your big sort of emotions and your crying and all that stuff was not welcome in a way, right? And you had to kind of hide that, right? And then so you learned that messy and feeling big things was bad, and you had to hide it. You had to hide that part of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that connects very deeply into codependency and to people pleasing, because those things are all about let's not rock the boat. Like let's not get into the messy territory, because it's scary, and I learned that it's unwelcome, and so I am going to do everything in my power to like make things as okay for you as possible, to the detriment of myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you talked about like the difference between like, like doing the work with your friends who, are worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To like have those conversations when you get into arguments or whatever. What are the differences? You don't have to name names, of course, but like, what are the differences between those people and the people who maybe are not worth it?
I think it would be what they give back to me. And that doesn't mean financially, or it just means emotionally, as support wise. There's people who, when you ask them how they're doing, they'll go on and on and on. And then very rarely do they turn around and say, how are you? How's your mom? Or, who don't remember those things. And, someone who ask about my parents and ask about like, just, remembers things that happened in my life and then follows up on them and asks about them. And not that that's mandatory, not that I'm keeping track of it, but you get the people who do those sorts of things. It's like this small, unnamed act of kindness or thoughtfulness that you don't always get from people. And I think you can't always tell until maybe it's been a while, but you're like, oh, whenever I'm around that person, everything's about them. And, and it's not like, oh, I didn't get my say or I didn't get to speak. It's more like you just don't feel, it doesn't feel like a mutually symbiotic relationship. Like it's a one-way relationship, I think, as you said earlier. So I think those are definitely the ones where I'm not going to, if I over a time sense that there's not much, reciprocation of care and love, then it's not worth investing my time in them. Not like having a fit, like, well, I'm not going to talk to them anymore, but just sort of a slow realization of, well, I don't always feel great when I hear that, when I'm around that person. I'm going to try to be around them a little bit less, and then realizing after a while, oh, I feel better when I don't see that person as much. They don't make me feel bad about myself, or I'm around people who care about me and who genuinely want to be with me. That feels amazing. And I just gravitate towards those people more often.
Yeah, I think we need to normalize how we humans have the capacity to change and also like make choices for ourselves. I think like I feel it in you a little bit of like wanting to like explain, but it's this, you have to understand it's this. I'm making this choice because this, like there's that, and I relate to that. That's like part of your people pleasing a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
But we don't have to explain, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where I want to be, and I don't think I'm there yet. But like, I'm making this choice because it's right for me, and you don't have to understand, and that's okay, right? Like I feel like I want to get to that place, and I think it's hard to get to that place because one, it takes a lot of just growth and self-confidence and self-peace and all this stuff, and it takes that from the people receiving it. And a lot of times the people receiving it, it's if we're dealing with people who are tending toward narcissism or tending toward that sort of more narrow framework, it's they feel very, very attacked, right? It's an affront to their whole world, right? So again, it's the two-way street. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has the people-pleasing stuff been with, I mean, you're a mom and you're a partner and you've been married for a while. Like, how has that been in your relationship and your life as a mama?
That's a really good question. I think have to sit with that to be able to think about it. I definitely love my kids, but I don't think that I apply my people pleasing to them as much. I'm still pretty much like, okay, you need to do your homework. I'm not going to try to not rock the boat. So that's a tough question. As far as my partner, though, he and I, it's an incredibly mutual relationship in my mind. I think I absolutely get as much back from him, if not more, than I give. And I do feel like probably, I joke that I'm the luckiest woman on earth, but I really am, because he is just so fantastic, and he's kind and patient and loving, and he inspires me to do better. And that's never something I thought I would have in a relationship necessarily. Like I just didn't think about it, but I seriously will say, what would Dennis do in this situation? What would he do? And it helps.
Not Dennis Leary. Dennis,
not
your
Dennis
partner.
Leary. Not Dennis with one N, Dennis Leary. No, Dennis, my partner. He, yeah. So it's definitely been huge, but it's also been great because I know he sees me. And so he's like having a tiny piece of myself outside of myself because he knows me so well. So he can see me getting to my edges, like getting to the point where I'm needing to set boundaries, but not seeing them. And he can politely, very nicely, bring up afterwards, maybe that person doesn't need to be around anymore. He'll bring up things so nicely in a way that doesn't invalidate how I'm feeling about it or what I'm doing. And if my counter to that is, well, here's why I think it's still okay. He's like, okay, that's fine. But it's great to have that extra perspective outside yourself. Like I just feel incredibly seen by him. And so it's easy for me to give everything for him because he's so great.
I love that. And I'm so grateful you have that. I think that I've encountered a lot of folks in my life who, and you see this, right? You see this where like the relationship is like the thing you attain, and then that's it, right? Like you've gotten the relationship, you've gotten the marriage, you've gotten the partner. And I think what's so essential and beautiful about healthy relationships is seeing each other and like championing each other in our respective growths and changes, right? I think like, truly like that's where like the real sort of transformation happens is within sort of loving, safe partnerships or loving safe spaces. Let's just call it that. Because I know for me, like I am a completely different person than I am today versus like who I was right before I met Jessica, for instance. And she's been crucial in that sort of journey. And it's because, to your point, like Dennis is doing, she sees me and she also challenges me and she knows me and she calls me on my stuff and she is proud of me and, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. I love that you have that too. And I love Jessica. It's delightful. But I feel the same way. I feel like I am a better person now for having been in this relationship with Dennis. And the thing is that I've realized is that we are both, for both Dennis and I, it's our second marriage. And I think having that past experience, you realize it's continual choice. Like I'm choosing him every day, and not because I married him 9 years ago or whatever. It's because I'm who he is today, because of what he's doing today, because he makes me coffee in the morning and brings it to me, and little tiny things and big things too. And all these little tiny reasons that add up to choosing each other every day. and somehow shifting other things to make each other a priority. And some weeks it's easy and some weeks it's hard.
Yeah.
And communication's obviously key, but I just, I feel like I've grown so much with him. And I'm actually really lucky because my ex is actually fantastic too. My ex and I still get along. He's a great co-parent with my oldest daughter, but just my partner now is just, he just sees my heart, holds my heart, keeps it safe, but then challenges me on my BS when I'm overreacting or when I'm doing something crazy, and he'll just in the kindest, most gentlest way, just be like, maybe it's a bit much.
I forgot that you had a previous marriage. Why did that end?
That is a very good question, and I'm not sure that is something I would discuss publicly.
Okay.
It just didn't work out. I think we stopped choosing each other.
Yeah,
I think
that's fair.
we stopped prioritizing each other, and our needs weren't being met.
Mm-hmm.
But I still consider him to be a fantastic person. Definitely on the top tier of people who exist in this planet. And he's a great dad. And I'm grateful for him and for his wife, who is a fantastic stepmom. I'm so grateful for both of them, to have them in my life, and to have them, we've always gotten along on things with parenting and pass stuff off back and forth. And it made me sad when we were getting divorced, because our daughter was about 3.5 at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard for her. And one of the best compliments I think I ever got was when she started kindergarten a couple of years later. And I was the room mom, and I said something to her about, her dad and I like going back to different houses. And she was like, what? Wait, what? And I said, oh yeah, we're divorced. And she was like, I had no idea. She's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can always tell when kids come from a home where there's been a separation. She said she is the most well-adjusted kid from a divorced parent side I've ever seen. And I was like, that is one of the nicest compliments I've ever received. It was really, really kind. And it's great. We have Christmas together. We do Easter together. Sophie now has 4 parents who love her instead of 2.
Wow.
So I think there's been definite upsides to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I went off on a tangent there, but
no, don't be sorry. So I do want to get back to the question that you couldn't answer or didn't have an answer for, which is like your people-pleasy sort of codependency part of yourself and you being a mom. And I'll give you an example. So the way this has shown up in friends, or I've just been witness to it, which is the codependent parent or the people-pleasing parent, sort of like when the child experiences something that is maybe can be perceived as like, maybe they struggle in school or whatever. Like the parent, the people-pleasing parent or the codependent parent says, I failed them. Like, that's on me. Like and they take it on. They take that on. They're sort of holding the burden of their kid's own sort of, C- or whatever. I don't know if you relate to that particularly, but maybe that will like be an end to like your thinking about that within sort of being a mom.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't feel that way, and I don't know if that's because I have 3 kids, and I feel like it's one of those things, that parents will joke about, like, you see someone who has 1 kid and they'll tell you something and you're just like, you have no idea. I joke with my daughter all the time, poor thing. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you were the experiment. And then we figured stuff out.
Yeah.
There are definite things where maybe I didn't want to rock the boat too much and was a little bit, not walking on eggshells, but just being treading carefully around certain things. But I think part of that was because I always had a little guilt about the divorce because, she was different from other kids. Her parents weren't together anymore, and that must be hard for her. And I don't know if that's from my empathy or people pleasing, a little bit of both, but I definitely think we did some of that. But I've also had some times where we've had to be strict on her, but whether or not she fails or succeeds at school, not to say I don't care, because that's not true. I do care. But in the grand scheme of things, her grades are not important.
Yeah.
Who she is as a person is very important to me. Now, if she came out to me as a Republican, I think I would lose my mind and probably freak out. So that is
how would you respond?
That I probably want to kick her out of the house, but I'm just kidding. I wouldn't. But she is such an amazing person, and I love her so much. And it's been amazing these past 15 years being her mom. It's been such a gift continuously. And I think part of the thing about being a parent that is the best and the hardest at the same time is that it constantly challenges you to look at yourself. Children are a mirror. They reflect back all of your things. And I can't tell you how many personal childhood traumas I didn't even realize I was carrying until I saw my reaction, or I was yelling about something and I was like, oh my gosh, I sound like my dad, or I sound like mom, and you didn't know you had that in you. You didn't know that was an issue, or that something like, I didn't like that when that happened. Now I've got to fix that. Now I've got to work on that. And so I feel like in my journey to be a better person, my kids have been maybe my greatest teacher, because I'm constantly having to shift and adjust and look at, why did I do that? What is causing me to do that? It's not this tiny person's fault that I'm so upset. I'm this, 5.5 feet tall person, and they're 2.5 or 3.5 feet. And it's not fair for me to get angry about something that they spilled some milk. It was like, why am I overreacting like this? And then learning to examine and go within. And I think a lot of times parents don't like being a parent because of that. I think it's something that nobody says out loud, but you really have to, if you want to be a good parent, you have to be willing to change yourself, and not in a bad way, but just to constantly change little things and really acknowledge who you really are, because kids are just the best reflection of.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you want to be a human person who wants to keep sort of changing and evolving and growing, parent or not, you have to look at that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think kids just force you to do it now, not in a couple of months when you feel better. You need to figure this out now, because they're having a crisis or they're having whatever, and you're like, okay, I got to deal with this, and we've got to figure out how to go from here. And it's been such a great teaching tool for me. I just called my kids tools. That's not what I meant, but
you heard it here first, folks. Jen's kids are tools. Tools in her self-care game. They're just pawns in her. They're cogs in her self-care machine. It's all about Jen. Jen's wellness.
All about me. That's the only reason to have kids. I'm just kidding. No, they are just so great at reflecting back to you what you don't want to acknowledge about yourself, but you really need to, in order to become a better person or become your truest self.
Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah.
So I just love that. And the one thing I don't understand, I mean, I joked about kicking my kids out if they come out as Republican, but I do, several of my children identify as somewhere on the LGBTQ plus 2S spectrum. And I love that about them. I don't understand parents who can reject children for those things, I'm like, that's something that's amazing and unique and wonderful about them. Why is that a bad thing? I don't understand. And so I just see them as a true gift, but I would be challenged if they came out as like strongly conservative. I don't.
Well,
Maybe I went somewhere wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the hard part, right? Is like, I think it's so beautiful. Of course, like we need to allow humans to be what they are, right? And honor that in them. And that's a beautiful gift that you're giving your kids in that space of safety and love. And at the same time, there's the anxiety of like, yeah, I am doing all I can to create this safe, loving environment for them to be who they are, and maybe for them to like glean some of my own sort of, empathetic traits and, all these things. But at the end of the day, they're going to be their own person. That's true. And if they choose to vote for Trump, like what the, like, of course you like, what the fuck did I do? So that's hard. Like that's the discord of like being a parent, which is like you do your best and then they turn out however they turn out because they're unique creatures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they're their own thinking human beings who have their own thoughts and their own ideas and their own identity. And I think that's maybe why I'm not the people pleasing doesn't necessarily apply to me in that same way that you mentioned, because I'm a huge follower of Janet Lansbury. She is an amazing writer, inspired by the teachings of Magda Gerber, and essentially realizing that children, the moment they're born as infants, are whole people. You always think of babies as these little flappy things, don't know how to use their arms and make lots of noises and are annoying. But
which they are.
They are,
but they're also whole.
But they're communicating.
Yeah.
That they are a human being, and they just don't have the language yet, and they don't have the communication skills or the motor skills to take care of themselves yet, and they are communicating. None of that is to be annoying. There's no intention of babies to be annoying. They're just expressing their needs. Yeah. And I've always been he was a game changer for me. That I found, I got into that theory before my second child was born, and I feel like it shifted a lot of things for me in my perspective, because I never took it personally when they were screaming at me, because they were communicating something, and it is really hard at the end of it, when you haven't had enough sleep and you're tired and you're the one to go to bed. It's hard to not take anything personally, but they were communicating their needs. Their needs were being inconveniencing me at the time. They were, not necessarily great timing, because I'd really like to get some sleep now, kid, but they were still communicating a need. So it shifted my perspective that I never had to take things personally. And I think all three of my kids have been expressive humans from the moment they popped out. And I think I maybe have a 50% influence on their thought process and sculpting, their actions, but all three of them are completely unique and completely amazing and have different strengths, have different, thought processes. And it's just mind blowing to me how amazing kids are and how they just know from, I feel like a lot of who you are is just, you're already there, even when you're just a tiny little baby. And so that's been great for me to have that perspective and to not take any of their things as my own failings, because, well, some of them are, because, we've had issues with like hitting or things like that as they got older. But my middle child, who is the sweetest, kindest flower of a child, was such a biter when she was 2. And it was so like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So, but it's my fault she's biting. It was more, how can I help redirect her? How can we move through this together? Yeah. And so if they fail in school, then do you need some tutors? How can I help? What can we do together? But is it my fault because I'm a terrible person? No, it's not. Yeah. But I should probably get you some tutoring. So let's work on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very compassionate and also a very expansive lens. I think where we get into trouble as humans is when we narrow our lens and narrowing sort of takes away from the full richness of like the people in our lives and how they can show up in the world. So I'm grateful to hear that it doesn't surprise me that you parent in that way as well. So let's talk a little bit about death. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my gosh.
So you recently, within the past, I don't know, year, I don't know when exactly it happened, but you got a certificate of some kind in being a death doula. And I'm curious, before we get into like what that means and all that stuff, I'm just curious, like, when you think of yourself as a human person and then you bring it into this space of like death and mortality and stuff, like what draws you to it? Why were you interested in going toward that kind of education and world? Because it's, I for me as a friend looking sort of on the outside looking in, it makes sense, right? Like, you're a very caring, sort of passionate person, and having you in that space would be a gift for anyone. So it makes sense, but I'm curious your sort of path to death.
So, well, my path to death, first of all, we're all going to die.
Living.
It's our inevitable end, as you so succinctly put in your beautiful podcast about Scooby. But my personal path to helping others, I've always had somewhat of a, not fascination, but interest around death, and not like in a morbid way, but in a, this is going to happen. It always fascinated me that it was essentially, it's all around us, right? You never know when your last moment's going to be. And that concept, if you will, the Buddhist concept of being present, because all we have is the present moment, has always been really fascinating to me. When my grandfather was dying, it was about a year after I had given birth, and I had a beautiful home birth with my amazing doula, Becky, and she had just been so supportive and amazing for me. The midwife was yelling at me, and I didn't really like her, and I didn't know what she was telling me to do, but Becky like held my hand and she talked me through it and got that baby out. Not physically, but emotionally, she helped get that baby out. And she was just so supportive and so amazing in that moment. And when I was going to visit my grandfather in the hospice, I felt so overwhelmed. And I just kept thinking about those moments with Becky and how amazing she had been and how supportive she had been in that crazy time. And I thought, is there that sort of thing for death? It exists for birth. Mm-hmm. So in my head, it's like a spectrum. And why doesn't it exist for death? And so I reached out to her and I texted her from the parking lot of the hospice, is there such a thing as a death doula? And she was very kind. She was like, I know that there is. I've heard of it, but I don't know anybody. And I asked another doula friend of mine who's now a midwife, and she said the same thing. She's like, they're out there. I just don't know any. So I went in to go see my grandfather, and I had so many questions. I just didn't know how much longer does he have? Is this normal? Is he supposed to be breathing like this? Why is his skin this color? All these questions that to me felt like stupid questions. And I didn't want to stress my grandmother out, who was there with me, by asking a nurse in front of her, or have the nurse think I was an idiot for asking these questions. And there's just so much about death that's not normalized in our culture. So we just don't know. But I wanted to know. For me, I fight fear and discomfort with information. I love research and I love finding out and understanding. And that helps me proceed with confidence. And I did my best, but I remember touching his arm and talking to him gently, and he was making noises. And then I couldn't tell if the noises were because he liked his arm being touched, or was I causing him pain? He was on a lot of morphine, but I thought maybe this is more painful for him. It was really hard for me to know. And so I just went home that day and couldn't stop thinking about who could I call? Who can I ask these questions to? And I just didn't know. And he died in the night. And I kind of let that idea go for a while. And it just marinated in the back of my head. And I mentioned it again to Becky like a year later. And she was like, yeah, you should totally do it. And it'd be great. You'd be great at that. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. And I just kind of sat with it for probably years. And then I listened to Becky on your show, and I started listening to your show. And I had the immense pleasure of meeting you for the first time at a party. And you had just had someone on your podcast. I don't remember what it is, but it was so inspiring. And it was like, yeah, you should just do it. And when I met you in person, I had signed up already, but you were so encouraging, and you were like, you should totally do it. And it was so like empowering and amazing. So you really helped encourage me, and I appreciate that so much. But I went forth and I did my training about 18 months ago. And the whole time I had this thing in the back of my head. I kept thinking, well, I didn't spend that much money on this program. So if it doesn't work out, I just have this information for me, and it's not a problem. Mm-hmm. But the more I learned, the deeper I got, the more I was like, oh yeah, this is for me. And I was nervous about, going to a client and helping clients for the first time. And the pandemic made things hard. So I did a lot of phone support. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there in person because of all the crazy COVID stuff happening shortly after I took my training. But then the first time I did get to be in person with someone, it's the weirdest thing, because you are with someone in their darkest time. I mean, there's the people around them. This person is at the end of their life, and their family is all, grieving, and they're sad, and everyone's trying to cope and trying to deal with it. And there are tons of challenges that come up in communication and just coping and medication management, all these things. And every day I didn't come home feeling, oh my gosh, this is too hard. I can't handle this. I came home feeling like my soul was on fire, because I was able to be there for those people in the moments where, the mother-in-law wasn't sure if it was okay if she touched her daughter-in-law's hand, who was dying of cancer. And I said, yes, absolutely. Hold her hand, touch her arms, like whatever she liked in life. If she was a touchy-feely person, yes, she liked that. She loved, being physically touched, and just being able to connect and normalize what was happening for her family, for her support system, felt to me like I was giving them the gift that I didn't get with my grandfather when he was going. And it just felt like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I obviously don't like death. I'm not excited that anyone is going through any of these things, but it is such an honor and a privilege to be able to sit alongside people going on this journey, to hold space for them, to keep them in my heart, and to help them through whatever things are coming up, whether it's, asking questions, well, why are they doing this, or what is happening, or what's going to happen next, and to, doing, I do guided meditation a lot to help with pain management, and just to help with processing. And I've had such amazing interactions that way. I feel like I learn so much, and I gain so much from connecting with my clients and their families. And it's just such an honor. I just love being able to be the support that I didn't have.
What are the common questions, like the most common questions that you've heard that come up from either the person who is dying or the family members?
Well, I think the most often asked question is what's going to happen next, which unfortunately no one ever knows, or how long. Everyone wants to know how long until they go. How long do they have?
But you don't have the answers to that question. So is it about just kind of...
Yeah, but I think normalizing that it's okay to ask those questions, and helping them learn to sit with the uncertainty, because you cannot answer that. And even unless you have a terrible hospice doctor who's making stuff up, they can't tell you either.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, probably within the next 24 hours. And then you could go another week. It just depends. There's so many variables that go into it: age, prognosis of the disease, like stage, and so many other, like genetics, environmental factors. There's so many factors that go into it that no one can tell. Like if people could tell that, then they'd be in a different business of predicting the future. But just guiding them through what steps are. So, I don't know what's going to happen next, but when when the breathing changes to this, then we'll know they're closer. And when certain things happen to the body, I get the "is this normal?" question a lot. That is it. Are the feet supposed to look like this? Or is this normal? Is this normal? And just, I think, being there to say, yep, it's normal and it's okay. They're not suffering. Like, to help ease people's minds has been such a, sorry, I keep saying the word gift, but it really does. It feels like an honor for me to be able to help people understand that those things are happening and it's okay. And I'm here with you. And let's talk about it. If you want to talk about it, or why is it upsetting to you? Or, I'm not a licensed grief counselor and I'm not a medical nurse at all. I can't make diagnoses or give medication, but I can explain a lot of the technical things that are happening to bodies as they get closer to the end. And a lot of it is emotional work. It is supporting. It is giving love and holding space. Offering rituals sometimes has been really rewarding. I think that you wouldn't think to do, but normalizing that even after a person has passed, you don't have to like shuffle them off immediately, that you can sit with their body and honor it and spend time with it. And there's different things you can do about that, just depending on your culture or beliefs. But it's just really, the questions I get the most often, I'd say, are different for every situation. So the ones I mentioned, but really just everyone just wants to know how to act, essentially. Is it okay for me to, can I do this? Is it okay for me to do this? Like, and
why do you think that is? Like, why, or is it a just worry that they're going to make things worse, or like what? Yeah.
I think so. I think partly, our culture really avoids death. We really run away from death. If you think about it, like all the anti-aging and youthful serums, I mean, what is that except what are wrinkles except acknowledging that time is passing, that you're getting closer to death, right?
Yeah.
Why are wrinkles so scary to people? Why is it culturally not acceptable? I love my wrinkles. I love these smile lines. They kind of drive me nuts, but then I shift in my perspective. I'm like, they mean I've been smiling so much that my face is showing it, that people can look at me even when I'm not smiling and see that I've smiled a lot because I have these smile lines here. And so I've learned to really shift my perspective. I'm grateful for my wrinkles because they mean I've lived a life worth living. And, but I think all of that is to say that our culture spends so much time avoiding death and discussing death that it feels overwhelming when someone's looming death is looming. And I think also people will do anything to avoid it. So it's also holding space for people in certain situations where people who've been a huge support and a huge part of their life don't want to see them anymore. And it's just because that person cannot handle the fact that they're not going to be around much longer. But then it's really sad for that person who's not going to be around much longer. And so I've been able to hold space and I've been able to normalize some of the processes. And one of my biggest successes, I think, was being able to talk to the person enough, not to try to convince them to go in and visit their dying loved one, but to listen to them and validate their worries and their anticipatory grief, which is very real, and all those things, and enough where then they felt like they could go in and say goodbye. And that was that felt really beautiful to me. That really healed something in my heart that I didn't know needed healing, because it was just really nice. And then, just that moment between two people, like a final moment, a final goodbye. And instead of having that person who may or may not have been like, I wish I would have gone in and said goodbye, to have given them the gift that they got to go in and say goodbye. And that they got that moment. So I like that.
Would you, always recommend? Because like I think about, obviously like a loved one. Let's not even call it a loved one. Like maybe just like a family member, and there's this sort of, maybe you feel an obligation, but like maybe you had like a strained relationship with this person. Like, would you always recommend as a death doula to like close that loop, or
no, absolutely not. We talked about boundaries earlier, and sometimes a boundary is this person who abused me, or who was a shitty dad, or wasn't around, or whatever it is. I would never convince someone to do something that wasn't in their best interest. In this case, the person was particularly afraid of seeing them look different.
Yeah. It's hard.
The way we kind of managed that was, they went in, they kept their eyes mostly, the person who was on their deathbed, mostly had their eyes closed at that point. And so I told the person, I said, they're not going to be able to make eye contact, but if you go in and just focus on their hands. And I had them pull up photos on their phone that they were looking at, the visitor, and essentially just talking about those memories. Remember when we went to this
That's
thing?
nice.
And so they were connecting, they were sharing memories. Hearing is the last sense to go. So it's always worth, saying something. They can probably hear you, even if they're not responding. But to have that focus not be on, oh my gosh, they look so bad right now. They look so sick. They look like they're going to die, which is terrifying. And I absolutely get why someone would not want to be traumatized by that. Yeah. I would never encourage someone to go in who was not ready. This person wanted to go in, but didn't feel they could, they weren't ready for it yet. So when I gave them a shift to sort of like hold their hand, focus on how your hands look together, and then look at your phone, scroll through photos, talk about memories, share things like that. You don't have to look at their face. And I think they ended up doing it. I feel like they looked at their face a lot. And so, but they felt empowered to not, they had permission to not do that. And that would still be okay. And it wouldn't matter to their person because they were there and their eyes weren't open anyway. So they wouldn't necessarily see that they weren't looking at them. Yeah. But, afterwards they thanked me and they said, yeah, they said, I'm glad I went. I'm really glad. So that was nice for me. And I'm glad that I was able to help facilitate that.
That's
but
lovely.
Definitely, if you have somebody who's not in a place, I don't think that seeing the person is required or mandatory. I think you have to listen to your own needs and your own, what's going to be best for you. Because even after someone has passed, if you didn't see them before they passed, or if you didn't get to their funeral, or there wasn't an open casket or something, I don't think that's always necessary. I think there's so many ways that you can honor someone and hold a ritual to hold your memories of them close, or if they're bad memories, to work through that and say goodbye to them in an honorary way that feels right for you, where you don't feel like you're giving them any satisfaction or something that might be difficult. Yeah. But I've actually done a fun, essentially a burial of symbols, where we took a thing that was symbolic for their relationship and had a little like goodbye ceremony. And it was almost most about anger than honoring someone, but then buried it, and just sometimes having a little ritual that can be designed for yourself and for whatever your needs are can be beneficial for emotionally moving on and feeling like they didn't go to the funeral, they didn't see their person on the deathbed, but they buried the part of their life. They said goodbye to that part of their life with a symbolic gesture as
Yeah.
opposed to ritual has a lot of power. I'm learning as someone who's
Yeah.
not raised in a religious household. And most rituals seemed like religious or inappropriate, or not inappropriate, but I was indifferent to them. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting to get into this. And I find that there's a lot of comfort in ritual that has nothing to do with religion or spirituality. And it's more about our own internal processes, but it can be really powerful.
Yeah, it can, absolutely. I so appreciate you painting the picture of your life and your experiences as a death doula. I for some reason thought you showed up and Cure, playing the Cure and like slaughtering goats and stuff. I thought that was like the main gist of it. But I was
that's only for the
wrong.
goths who are on their deathbed. So
got it.
We'll work on that. Yeah. No, just kidding.
What's fascinating about all of this, and I've talked about it kind of endlessly on the show, but it's kind of always where I'm at, which is like, I understand why we have such a fear about death and why we don't talk about it, because it is this big mystery, right? And it's an inevitable one, right? Like, no one really knows like how we'll go and when we'll go. And I feel, and I think this is part of what the work you're doing, and I think it's so important, is the work I think we all need to be doing right now, this day, and every day, is allowing for mystery and being open to the mystery of uncertainty and of what tomorrow will bring, and allowing ourselves to just kind of be in that space and being curious about it and not trying to control too much and all that stuff. Like, I think like that framework, when the time comes, it'll be easier. Like, it'll be easier to like process the death and sort of deal with that for our loved ones and for ourselves, if we're sort of operating on that mindset. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think normalizing uncertainty is huge, and I think that's part of my job as a death doula. All of it's uncertain. I can tell you general things. There's certain breathing patterns. There's certain, physical signs and symptoms, but I can't tell you when. I can't tell you how, or and there's so many different variables I can't tell you. And so it's just sitting with people in that uncertainty and making it okay. And be like, well, we don't know, but you're not alone, and we'll do it together. That kind of thing. And I'm there for the family and the loved ones of my clients as much as I am my clients. I mean, my clients obviously come first, but sometimes I've been hired by family members to help with stuff. So it's all beautiful and it's all valid, and yeah.
Have you thought about how, I mean, obviously we this is contextualized with the sort of uncertainty and we never know when we're going to die and all that stuff. But like, have you thought about like how, well, maybe this is a two-part question. One is just a fantasy exercise of like how you want to die. And two, the piece of like do you want to get cremated? Like, do you want to get buried into a tree? Like, do you want to get shot out of a cannon, whatever?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. No, these are all, I love these questions. These are great. And obviously we cannot know the uncertainty. I could, drive off the side of a mountain cliff going up to go hiking or something. You never know what's going to happen. So should I have my choice and die of old age or disease in some way, I have absolutely written out incredibly specific details of what I would want my my deathbed and to look like. It will definitely be. I'd love to be in nature somehow. I don't know how I'm going to get a hospice bed into the forest, but we're going to try. And I would love for my husband to be there playing music, or at least have his music recorded. He's an amazing pianist. And so have his music recorded, so then he can be touching my hands. I love physical touch. I love like my legs being touched lightly. And it's something that I know that if I'm laying there, like mostly unconscious or, towards the end, I still want people to be like, gently touching my hands, touching my arms, like touching my legs. Some people are like, don't touch me. I hate that. And everyone's completely different. But for me, it's totally written out in my specific instructions. I'd like running water to be nearby me. I know that's an extra weird request, but running water is really important and symbolic for me. So I would absolutely love to be near running water. So natural water, not like a sink, but
not like a toilet.
And I'd love to have loved ones around if they're comfortable with it too. There's been amazing examples that I was taught or have learned about that I haven't necessarily had the chance to enact because of COVID. I haven't been in hospitals for any hospital deaths. I've only been in home hospice situations to help.
Mm-hmm.
So, but because most hospitals have a one visitor rule, you can't hold space and have a whole room full of people, unfortunately, right now. So, COVID has definitely shifted things, which we're shifting back to somewhat of how it used to be before. But generally, just things like where someone would hold space outside of the door, like you have a sign to say, think about your person before you come in. I would want that too. I'd want them to come in and share a memory. Like my visitors, I'd like them to come in and tell a story of something that we did together, or a memory, or make jokes, or be silly. And then as far as my after I've passed, I'm really into green burials. There's a whole thing, and there's a huge booming, I'm not going to say it's an industry because it's not that big yet, but there's a booming interest in green burials and things besides cremation and burials, which are neither of which is very good for the environment. And there's something called green burials where they will put you in a shroud of essentially like linen or cotton, some sort of natural fiber, flax, and then you will be buried in it. But there's very few and far between legal places where you could bury. Obviously, you don't want to stumble across a body decomposing in normal places. So you need to have permits, and there's very few like cemetery spaces where you can do that without like coffin and cement and all those things. But there's also something called alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation, which is a really cool, somewhat new technology. It was legalized in California as of July 2020, where there's like a giant tank and a body is put in the water, and they add, I'm not going to say the name of the chemical because I'm going to get it wrong, but it's an alkaline chemical, and the water is kept like just under 200 degrees, I think. And within about 24 to 36 hours, everything has been essentially liquefied, except for they use the alkaline helps break down all the tissue and everything except the bones. And so then you have the bones that are left over, and then those are essentially the same process as a cremation. You end up with ashes, but instead of looking like gray ashes from fire, you have these like really, really white ashes because it's just bone that's powder essentially. And then most places have agreements with like local flower growers or things like that, where they can use the really, really nutritious water essentially to help things grow and help the planet, which I think is really cool. But my absolute favorite, and there's other crazy ones too. What are the ones like a mycelium, like a mushroom?
Oh,
coffin?
I want that.
It's super cool. They're super, super cool. So it's like there's one shaped like an egg, and I think those are mostly in Europe. I don't think I've seen any for sale in California yet, or I'm not sure about the US, but those are cool too. But my favorite is there's a company that's been championing this in Seattle, in Washington State, called Recompose. Katrina Spade is this really, really amazing human who has put together this really cool process that took her years to figure out, but essentially it's human composting. And they have figured out the exact right combination of like alfalfa, peat, wood chips. I can't remember what some of the other like organic like materials, and the right humidity and temperature. And essentially it goes into these cool pods. You still have services and everything like you would for a normal like funeral, but then instead of going into a cremation tube, you go into this pod. And I can't remember the turnaround, but it's less than 2 months. You end up with compost. You end up with soil, and it's just soil. And you can most people choose to take like some of the soil, and then the rest of it gets donated to reforestation after California wildfires or Washington wildfires they had, but like a reforestation in the natural forestry they're working with. And it's just I just love that concept that I will then be all the nutrients that I took from the planet, from all my, calories that I've taken in, I will then give back to the planet to help it regrow. And then, some of the stuff can come back and nourish a tomato plant outside my kid's backyard. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think I love that idea. That to me seems like the most, the best for the planet so far as the options go. So I love the human composting. They are trying to get it legal in California. So there's a lot of really cool movements. It's not quite there yet, but I'm hoping that when they do, it's legal in Colorado and Washington. And they've got their sights set on other places. And there's other companies that do it too in Washington now, but I know that Katrina Spade was one of the champions of it. And so
that's neat.
Yeah.
I love that. Have you learned about any, because I'd imagine that like the US versus like anywhere else, like when it comes to death, there's like maybe more silence about it here in the US, or maybe more sort of fear and anxiety about it. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. Well, I can't speak for other countries entirely. Every culture has their own beliefs and
right.
rituals around it. One of my favorite books, there's an author named Caitlin Doughty. She's on YouTube as Ask a Mortician, but she's actually an amazing author as well. She has 3 books, and the first one is about her path to becoming a funeral director, working in a crematory. It's really fascinating. And then the second one is where she travels the globe with her friend who has the Instagram hashtag, or not Instagram account, Hexen Cult. And they travel to all these cool places where they have completely different death culture rituals, from like essentially mummies that live in houses with people. But it's not gross to them. It's not weird to them. That's just how they do. Like, why would you? It's weird to them that we take our loved ones and throw them in the ground with dirt. Why wouldn't you honor them by taking care of their bodies and, keeping them looking nice and in nice clothes, fair. And then, in the cupboard right next to where you sleep? Like, for us, that seems crazy, but for them, our stuff seems, why would you throw them in the dirt? That's weird.
Totally.
So, it's a really cool book. So it's hard to say. Obviously, cultures are so vast and varying all throughout the world. But I think maybe the capitalism has a lot to do with, pushing, like I said, like eye serums and injections and things to make us look younger is maybe more of a Western concept. And that to me is like death avoidance in a nutshell. All of that is just pointing to death avoidance and denial. And so I think that countries that maybe aren't as capitalistic might have a less terrifying view of death, but it's hard to say. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. And, cause I think about like, I mean, like there are certain like maybe Eastern religions that do sort of incorporate more of a kind of a what seems to be like more of a like circle of life type of like perspective about life and death, and thinking of like things like reincarnation and stuff. Like some of those things can maybe help with the death anxiety, but like obviously like we have sort of Judeo-Christian beliefs of like living in heaven or hell, although that can contribute to death anxiety, I'd imagine, a bit as well, because thinking that like you're going to burn in hell for eternity. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about like religion and how that plays a role as well. Yeah.
There's something in, there's I can't remember. I think it's in Tibet, and some of the monks, there's something called a sky funeral, where essentially they're up in the Himalayas or someplace where it's really rocky, and they'll essentially take the body after a funeral and they'll go lay it out on some rocks, and then the vultures will come in.
Wow.
and they will nourish. But that sounds maybe horrifying to someone to watch, but it's, you're returning your body to nature. And if you live on a mountainous terrain, there's really nowhere to bury a body much anyway. And so you're just returning to nature in that way. You're nourishing the food chain. And so they've actually gotten so popular with tourists. I think they had to ban them because people did want to go watch that. But I think that's a really fascinating, cool, interesting thing. And you mentioned death anxiety, and that is a huge, I think, issue in our country because of not being a part of our conversations. There's something on, I don't want to say online, but there's like a thing called the death positive movement, where lots of social media and just in general, something called death cafes, which are, death cafes, where people will just sit together and talk about death. And there's no agenda. There's no anything being pushed. It's really just people having open conversations about death. And I think the only way to work through death anxiety is through conversations and communication. It's something that I specialize in too, is helping people with that. It's funny because my work starting up, my kids would overhear certain conversations where I was speaking to my partner. And it's so funny because I didn't even think about it, but my middle child started developing major death anxiety because she heard me talking about death all the time. So it seemed like this, oh my gosh, scary thing. So we had to work through it. It was really interesting to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I just gave my daughter death anxiety. This is like the opposite of what I should be doing. But we had to open discussions about it. And so she knows now anytime she has questions about things that she can come to me. And I'm a little bit terrified for her to go back to school and start announcing to all her friends, well, when you die, just going off on things.
Hey,
like, yeah. I might be getting called into the
you're going to die.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. We're all going to die anyway, or something like that. I'm like, oh.
What was the thing that helped your kiddo with like coming to terms with it?
Talking about it.
Yeah. Was there any
I know
specific?
That sounds vague.
Yeah.
Because everyone's death anxiety is not specific to them, but it's completely universal, death anxiety in general. But the real big meaning behind it is really sitting and listening to someone, like what parts are scary to you. And some people, it's not knowing if there's something afterwards. Other people, it's what about all my daughter was worried about all her stuff. Like, where's my stuff going to go? Who's going to get my stuff? So we talked about wills and we talked about things. And then so we haven't done it yet, but I offered her, I said, we can write a will for you if you want. I know you're only, 8, but if you want to. But that just talking about it, that existed seemed to give her peace of mind. Like, okay, so someone's taking care of it. That'll be handled. Okay, good. I don't have to worry about that. But just answering questions when they come up. And so I love it. I get messages on my Instagram quite often of people just having questions or needing to process. And it's just amazing connecting with people and talking about things, people who live on the other side of the country or the other side of the world. One of my clients is in India, and she and I have amazing conversations. And it's not just with humans, it's also with loved ones who are of the animal variety, of the 4-legged and other variety, because we can form attachments to any of them. And I honestly believe that you can be just as attached to a pet as you can to, another human being. So I think that losing a pet can be a very real, obviously, from Sweet Scooby, but it's been nice for me to be able to help connect and hold space with people, even just online, even just connecting with them and listening to them. It is hard to show that you're holding space for someone when you're just texting or just DMing someone, but just to sit and listen and to say, I'm listening and I care, and that's okay. And anticipatory grief is another huge one too. If if a loved one has a terminal diagnosis, the grief of knowing that they're going to die, but then they're not yet dead. So you almost are like in a holding pattern,
Yeah.
you're like kind of in a waiting room, and you don't know how long it's going to be. And it's a lot to deal with emotionally. And anticipatory grief is very, very real. And I think a lot of times people dismiss it because they're like, oh, well, they're not dead yet, I shouldn't be so sad. It's like, nope, you can be sad now. That's okay. And you can be sad afterwards. It's all valid. So just holding space for people and normalizing all of those things and saying, that's okay. It's okay for you to feel however you're feeling. And talking to someone always helps. And I'm not a grief counselor specifically. I will hand out referrals if someone needs more than what I can help them with. Then I will absolutely, in a very nice way, suggest that they maybe reach out to a professional, because I am limited in what I can offer as far as that. But just getting the conversation going sometimes is good, and sometimes it's enough for people.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you're doing that work, and I am grateful to call you a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that you showed up here today, and I'm grateful to all you listeners who are listening here. It's not easy stuff to think about death, but we're all going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. Jen's going to die. And that's, the more we talk about it, as Jen says, the more we have the safety to listen and converse about, maybe some of our trepidation about dying, the easier it will be. And that's the case for all of this stuff. That's the case for all sort of tough conversations or big ideas or whatever. Is hold space, listen, be curious, give love, embrace empathy, all that stuff. So, Jen, Empathy Heroes. This is the part of the show, as you know very well, as a dedicated Feely human, part of the show where we talk about empathy heroes, people in our lives who are empathetic, compassionate, just feely people. Could be characters from stories. Could be people we don't know personally, but who have impacted our lives in profound ways. I will go first to give you a second to think about your empathy hero. My empathy hero this week is really anyone taking their time and being thoughtful and measured about how you're, quote unquote, getting back to normal. So anyone who is, because I know that I have been feeling some well, okay, I'm vaccinated. What does that mean? And yes, I feel maybe much safer, but I'm also still going to wear a mask, in public indoor spaces, going to Trader Joe's. I'm going to wear a mask for a while, probably, because that's just what I'm comfortable with. And I want to honor that for myself, and I want to honor that for you who are making that choice for yourself, because there's a lot of stuff out there that says we need to feel shame, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, get vaccinated. I want you to get vaccinated. And also, take your time. It's okay. We've just been through, and we're still going through, a very, very difficult time. And that includes a lot of grief and pain and loss. And so give yourself space and time to get back to quote unquote normal. And so I want to honor those people. Those are my empathy heroes.
I love it. That's great. Well, it feels like cheating to say that you're my empathy hero, but you are one of my empathy heroes, but you know that.
I do know that, but you have to choose another one.
Okay, fine. It has to be my husband, my partner, Dennis. He is just a phenomenal human being. He is the very epitome of empathy for me, being empathetic and so patient with me and his kids and with everyone in life. He is just really kind and wonderful. And even though he has a pretty high up position in his company, he is empathetic. I overhear his conversations, and he's in charge of technology stuff, but he ends up doing emotional negotiating between colleagues so often, and he just navigates it with such care and empathy and concern for the true well-being of others. And he's empathetic for animals. He's just one of the greatest humans of all time, but absolutely an absolute empathy hero.
Yes, that's a great choice. Dennis is my empathy hero as well, for sure. Well, Jen, I know you're on a Instagram break as of this recording, but where can people learn more about you? If folks out there like maybe are in the process of losing someone in their life, like where can they connect with you and learn more about the services that you offer?
Instagram is great. I am at Mortality Inc. INC on Instagram and Twitter, but I don't use Twitter very often. And I am in the process of setting up a website, which will be mortalityinc.com, but I'm just not quite ready yet. So, or mortalitymail@gmail.com. You can just shoot me an email and we can chat and we can figure stuff out, see if I can help you.
Nice. How long have you had the mortalityinc.com URL?
Like a week.
Oh, wow. Like it wasn't taken.
It was not. No.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I felt pretty lucky. So.
Yeah.
And thanks to Norman Leonard for helping me come up with the name.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that the website is out by the time this episode comes out, because that would be good. At least a landing page, and I can help you with it if you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being on You Me Empathy. Finally, we made it happen.
For having me known. Yay. This is a delight. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.